I was mocked for being barren at 40. But the most desired Lycan King fell in love with my soul. A full werewolf romance audiobook. They called me Barren like it was my name. Not Sally. Not even the pitying poor dear some of the older pack members used. Just Barren. The broken one. The defective she-wolf who couldn't do the one thing women were supposed to do, give her mate pups. I was 40 years old, and I'd spent the last 20 of those years being invisible. Or worse, being visible only as a cautionary tale. See that woman? Don't end up like her. Alone. Unwanted. Useless. The whispers followed me everywhere I went. Through the pack market where mothers clutched their children a little tighter, as if my inability to conceive was contagious. Through pack gatherings where I served drinks and cleaned tables because that's what unmated, childless women did, we made ourselves useful in whatever small ways we could. I'd learned to make myself small. To take up less space. To avoid eye contact. To pretend I didn't hear the cruel jokes or see the pitying glances. Some days I succeeded. Most days I didn't. But I survived. Because that's what you do when giving up isn't really an option. Then everything changed. The announcement came on a Tuesday. The Lycan King Darrell Havel, the most powerful and desired unmated male in 5 kingdoms, was seeking his true mate. He would be visiting every major pack, attending formal receptions, hoping his fated mate would reveal herself. Our pack went absolutely wild. Every unmated she-wolf under 30 lost her mind. Suddenly the pack house was full of giggling, preening young women trying on their finest dresses, practicing their curtsies, dabbing perfume on their wrists and throats. The air smelled like desperation and expensive fragrance. I watched it all from the sidelines, the way I always did. Of course I did. I was 40. I was barren. I was so far outside the realm of possibility that I didn't even entertain a single fantasy. The king was looking for his mate, yes, but that mate would be young, fertile, beautiful. Someone who could give him heirs and secure his bloodline. Someone the exact opposite of me. The day of the reception, I wore my plain gray dress and helped set up. I arranged flowers. I polished silver. I made sure the wine glasses sparkled. The kind of invisible work invisible women do. And then he arrived. King Darrell Havel was everything the rumors promised and more. Tall, powerfully built, with dark hair that fell past his shoulders and golden eyes that seemed to glow with inner fire. He moved like a predator, graceful and dangerous, and every she-wolf in the room held her breath when he entered. He greeted our pack alpha with formal courtesy, then turned to survey the room. The young women had positioned themselves strategically, each one hoping to catch his eye. His gaze swept past them. All of them. And landed on me. I was standing in the corner, holding a tray of wine glasses, trying to be invisible the way I always did. But his eyes found me like a magnet finding metal, and everything stopped. The room, the noise, my heart, everything just stopped. He stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Shock, maybe. Or disbelief. His nostrils flared slightly, and I realized with a jolt that he was scenting the air, reading the pheromones the way lichens do. Then he started walking. Straight toward me. Ignoring our alpha's confused questions. Ignoring the beautiful young she-wolves who'd spent hours preparing for this moment. Ignoring protocol and propriety and everything else. He stopped directly in front of me, so close I could feel the heat radiating from his body, and looked down at me with those impossible golden eyes. You, he said, his voice rough and wondering. You're mine. My mate. The tray slipped from my hands. Wine glasses shattered on the floor, red liquid spreading like blood across the polished wood. And my entire world tilted on its axis. If you're loving Sally's story so far, welcome to our pack. Hit that subscribe button because this tale of second chances and soul-deep love is just getting started, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when Sally finally starts believing she deserves everything Darrell's offering. New stories drop every week, and your girl Sally has a lot more to say about learning to love yourself when the world keeps telling you you're not enough. The room erupted. Shocked gasps. Confused muttering. Someone dropped a plate. Our alpha was trying to speak, but I couldn't hear him over the roaring in my ears. My mate. He'd called me his mate. That was impossible. Completely, utterly impossible. I was still standing there, frozen, staring up at this impossibly beautiful king who was staring back at me like I was the only person in the room, when several things happened at once. A young she-wolf named Victoria, 19 years old and absolutely stunning, stepped forward. Your Majesty, there must be some mistake. That's Sally. She's Barren. She can't possibly be your mate. Another voice, male this time. She's 40, Your Majesty. Surely you meant. I know exactly what I meant, Darrell said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. He hadn't taken his eyes off me. She is my mate. I can feel the bond. I consented on her. But she can't give you heirs, someone else protested. That's when I found my voice. He's right, I said, surprised at how steady I sounded when everything inside me was shaking. There's been a mistake. I'm nobody. I'm not. I can't be what you need. His hand reached out, stopping just short of touching my face. May I? He asked softly, and something about that simple request for permission made my throat tight. I nodded, not trusting my voice. His fingers brushed my cheek, and the moment we touched, I felt it. Like lightning through my veins. Like coming home after a lifetime of being lost. The mate bond, undeniable and overwhelming. No mistake, he murmured, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. You're exactly what I need. Before I could process that, before I could think or speak or breathe, our alpha was there, pulling at Darrell's attention. Your Majesty, perhaps we should discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss, Darrell said, finally breaking eye contact with me to address the room. I've found my mate. We'll proceed according to tradition. I'll court her properly, and when she accepts me, we'll complete the mating bond. When she accepts me. As if there was any question. As if I had any choice but to fall at his feet in gratitude that someone, anyone, wanted me. Except that's not what I saw in his eyes when he looked back at me. I didn't see pity or duty or political calculation. I saw something that looked almost like reverence. I'd like to speak with you, he said. Privately, if you're willing. Was I willing? Was I breathing? Was any of this actually happening? Yes, I whispered. He smiled then, and it transformed his entire face from intimidating to breathtaking. Come with me. He offered his arm like I was someone important, someone worthy of courtesy. I took it because I couldn't not take it, and we walked through the silent, staring crowd toward the gardens outside. Behind us, the whispers started immediately. I could hear fragments as we left. Has to be a mistake. Barren woman, what's he thinking? Probably won't last. She's old enough to be. I tried to pull away, to put distance between us, but Darrell's hand covered mine on his arm, holding me gently in place. Don't listen to them, he said quietly as we stepped into the cool evening air. They don't matter. They're right though, I said, and hearing myself say it out loud made something crack inside my chest. I am Barren. I am 40. I can't give you what a king needs. Stop. He guided me to a stone bench tucked between two flowering bushes, away from the windows and prying eyes. Please, sit. I sat. He settled beside me, close but not touching, giving me space to breathe. Tell me your name, he said. Your real name, not the labels they've given you. Sally, I said. Sally Finnie. Sally. He tested it, seeming to savor the sound. I'm Darrell. And before we go any further, I need you to understand something about the mate bond. I waited, my hands twisted together in my lap. It's not about fertility or bloodlines or producing heirs, he said. It's about souls recognizing each other. My soul knows yours, Sally. I felt it the moment I walked into that room. Like every piece of me that's been scattered for 200 years suddenly clicked into place. 200 years. Right. He was an ancient Lycan, and I was a 40-year-old nobody who couldn't even do the one thing women were supposed to do. But you need heirs, I said, forcing myself to be practical even as everything in me wanted to just sink into the fantasy he was offering. You're a king. You need children to continue your line. And I can't. I've tried. For 5 years of marriage, I tried. The healers all said the same thing. My womb is. I don't care about your womb, he said, and the fierce intensity in his voice made me look up. I care about you. Your strength. Your soul. The way you held your head up walking through that room even though I could smell the shame and pain rolling off you in waves. The way you survived something that would have broken most people. I'm not strong, I said. I'm just too stubborn to die, I guess. He smiled at that, soft and sad. That's exactly what strength is, Sally. Surviving when giving up would be easier. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But 20 years of being told you're worthless doesn't disappear because one man, even a king, says something different. This is crazy, I whispered. You just met me. You don't know anything about me. Then let me learn, he said simply. Let me court you properly. Let me prove that I see you, really see you, not the labels everyone else has stuck on you. And when you realize they're right? When you realize I really am just a broken, barren woman with nothing to offer a king? His hand reached out again, this time taking both of mine, surrounding my twisted fingers with his warmth. I'm 200 years old, Sally. I've met thousands of women. Beautiful women, powerful women, women who could trace their bloodlines back centuries. None of them made me feel anything. But you? 5 seconds in the same room, and I felt everything. I looked down at our joined hands. His were so much larger, scarred from what I assumed were countless battles, strong and capable. Mine were rough from work, marked with small burns from the pack kitchen, ordinary and plain. I don't understand why, I said. Neither do I, he admitted. But I don't need to understand fate to trust it. And fate brought me to you. We sat there in silence for a long moment, the sounds of the disrupted reception drifting through the windows, my mind spinning with impossible possibilities and old, familiar fears. What if I can't be what you need? I finally asked. What if you already are, he countered. Before I could respond, footsteps crunched on the gravel path. We both looked up to see Victoria approaching, her beautiful face twisted with something between confusion and anger. Your Majesty, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Forgive the interruption, but the Alpha has asked me to inform you that the Council wishes to speak with you about this situation. Tell them I'll speak with them tomorrow, Darrell said, not letting go of my hands. They're rather insistent, Victoria pressed. She looked at me then, and I saw it in her eyes. The same thing I'd been seeing for 20 years. Contempt. Pity. Judgment. Perhaps it would be best if Sally returned to her duties. This has all been very overwhelming for someone in her condition. My condition? I heard myself say, my voice sharper than I intended. Your barrenness, Victoria said, as if she were being helpful. It's just, everyone's talking, and it might be easier for you if you just stepped aside. Let His Majesty explore other options before making any hasty decisions. I felt Darrell tense beside me, but before he could speak, something inside me shifted. 20 years of accepting this treatment, of bowing my head and taking it, and suddenly I was just tired. No, I said. Victoria blinked. Excuse me? I said no, I repeated, standing up. Darrell stood with me, his hand moving to the small of my back in a gesture of support. I'm not stepping aside. I'm not making this easier for anyone. If His Majesty wants to explore other options, that's his choice to make. But I'm done making myself smaller so everyone else can be more comfortable. It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't powerful. But it was mine. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. But you can't. Actually, she can, Darrell said, and there was no mistaking the warning in his voice. And I suggest you remember that you're speaking to my mate. The next time you forget that, we'll have a very different conversation. Victoria paled, executed a hasty bow, and practically fled back to the pack house. As soon as she was gone, my knees went weak. Darrell's arm wrapped around my waist, steadying me. That was... He started. Stupid, I finished. That was stupid. She's going to tell everyone, and they're all going to. That was brave, he corrected. That was you starting to believe you deserve respect. And Sally? I looked up at him. That's the woman I saw the moment I walked into that room. That strength, that fire. That's who you are under all the shame they've buried you in. I wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that it was just a moment of madness, that I'd go back to being invisible tomorrow like I always did. But his eyes held such certainty, such conviction, that the words died in my throat. Stay with me tonight, he said. Not like that, he added quickly when I tensed. I have quarters in the guest house. Stay there, let me keep you safe while the pack adjusts to this news. Please. It was the please that did it. This powerful king, asking rather than commanding. Okay, I whispered. Okay. That night, lying in a bed far more comfortable than my own, in rooms far more luxurious than I'd ever inhabited, I stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything that had happened. He'd called me his mate. He'd held my hand. He'd defended me against Victoria and the whispers. He'd asked me to stay. And somewhere, buried under 20 years of shame and pain and believing I was broken, a tiny spark of something that felt dangerously like hope flickered to life. I was terrified of it. Terrified of believing this could be real, could last. Terrified of what would happen when he realized what everyone else already knew, that I was exactly what they said I was. But that tiny spark wouldn't go out. And as I finally drifted off to sleep, I let myself imagine, just for a moment, what it might be like if this impossible thing was actually happening. If someone really did see past my age, my barrenness, my supposed defects, and want me anyway. If I was really someone's mate. If I was really enough. The thought should have felt ridiculous. Instead, it felt like coming home. The next morning, reality came crashing back. I woke early, the way I always did, decades of habit impossible to break. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I saw the elegant room, felt the silk sheets, and remembered. The Lycan King claimed me as his mate. It still seemed impossible in the harsh light of day. I dressed quickly in my plain clothes from yesterday and slipped out of the guest quarters, intending to return to my small cottage before anyone saw me. But the moment I stepped outside, I knew I was too late. A group of pack members had gathered near the main house, and they all turned to look at me. The whispers started immediately. Actually spent the night. Shameless. Trap a king. I kept my head down and walked faster, but a familiar voice stopped me. Sally. Wait. I turned to see Thomas, my ex-husband, approaching. We'd been divorced for 15 years, but I still felt that old familiar shame when I saw him. He'd remarried within a year of our divorce, had 3 pups with his new wife. Living proof that the problem had been me all along. Thomas, I said carefully. I need to get home. I heard about last night, he said, and his voice was filled with that same pitying tone I'd heard from him for the 5 years of our marriage. Sally, I'm worried about you. Don't be. You can't actually believe the king wants you, he said, as if he were being kind. Come on. You and I both know what you are. What you can't do. He's a king. He needs heirs. Each word was like a knife, precision placed to cut the deepest. And the worst part was, he wasn't being cruel. He genuinely believed he was helping me. Maybe he does want me, I said, hating how weak my voice sounded. For what? Thomas asked. You couldn't even satisfy me, and I was just a regular pack wolf. What do you think you can offer a king? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because what could I say? He was voicing every fear that had kept me awake last night, every doubt that had been eating at me since Darrell's golden eyes found mine. I'm trying to save you from more pain, Thomas continued, stepping closer. You remember how hard it was when we couldn't conceive. How many times you cried yourself to sleep. How worthless you felt. Do you really want to go through that again, but this time with a king? This time with an entire kingdom watching you fail? That's enough. We both turned to find Darrell standing a few feet away, and I had no idea how long he'd been there or how much he'd heard. His expression was cold, colder than I'd seen it, and his golden eyes were fixed on Thomas with an intensity that made my ex-husband take an involuntary step back. Your Majesty, Thomas stammered. I was just telling my mate she's worthless, Darrell finished, his voice deadly soft. Reminding her of pain you caused. Trying to convince her she's not good enough for me based on your own inadequacies. I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said, Darrell interrupted. He moved to stand beside me, his presence solid and protective. And now you're going to listen very carefully to what I say. Sally is my mate. Mine. The bond between us is sacred, fated, absolute. Your opinion about her worth, your experience with her, your pathetic attempts to make yourself feel better by diminishing her, none of it matters. None of it changes what she is to me. Thomas had gone pale. Around us, the gathered pack members were dead silent, watching. If I hear, Darrell continued, that you've spoken to her again, about her again, or even looked at her with anything less than the respect due to my mate and your future queen, I will consider it a personal insult to me. And I promise you, you don't want to insult me. Am I understood? Yes, Your Majesty, Thomas whispered. Good. Now get out of my sight. Thomas practically ran. Darrell turned to the gathered crowd. That goes for all of you. Sally Finnie is my mate. I expect her to be treated as such. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. No one said a word. They just stared, some with shock, some with fear, some with something that might have been grudging respect. Then Darrell's hand found mine, warm and steady, and he looked down at me. Are you all right? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Because I wasn't all right. I was shaking, overwhelmed, terrified, and something else I couldn't quite name. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you some breakfast. He led me back toward the guest house, away from the staring eyes, and I let him because I couldn't think, couldn't process what had just happened. Inside, in the elegant sitting room, he guided me to a chair and knelt in front of me, his hands covering mine. How much did you hear? I finally managed to ask. Enough, he said. Too much. Sally, I'm sorry you had to hear those things. He wasn't wrong, though, I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. I couldn't give him children. I couldn't even make him happy. What if he's right? What if I can't? Stop. Darrell's hands tightened on mine. Listen to me very carefully. Your ex-husband is a small, bitter man who couldn't handle his own disappointment, so he made it your fault. That's not truth. That's cowardice. But the healers said. I don't care what the healers said about your ability to conceive, he interrupted. That has nothing to do with your worth as a person, as a woman, as my mate. I wanted to believe him. But 20 years of evidence said otherwise. You need heirs, I said. A king needs children to continue his line. That's just fact. I'm 200 years old, he said. If I'd cared that much about heirs, I would have forced myself to choose someone decades ago. I didn't, because I was waiting. For you. How can you possibly know that? Because the moment I scented you, everything made sense. 2 centuries of feeling empty, of going through the motions, of wondering why nothing satisfied me, it all clicked into place. You're the reason. You're what I've been waiting for. Tears burned my eyes. I don't know how to believe that. Then let me prove it, he said. Give me time. Let me court you properly. Let me show you that what everyone else thinks doesn't matter. A knock at the door interrupted us. Darrell's jaw tightened with frustration, but he called out, "Enter." A well-dressed man I recognized as one of the king's advisors stepped in, bowing formally. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion. The council has assembled and requests your immediate presence. It's urgent. Of course it was. Of course they couldn't just let this be. Darrell stood, but kept one hand on my shoulder. Tell them I'll be there within the hour. Your Majesty, they were quite insistent. Within the hour, Darrell repeated, his tone brooking no argument. The advisor bowed again and left. Darrell looked down at me. I have to deal with this. Will you be all right here? I should probably go home anyway. No. His hand cupped my face, gentle but firm. Stay here. Please. I don't want you facing more harassment while I'm handling the council. I can't hide forever. Not hiding, he corrected. Giving me time to make it clear to everyone that you're under my protection. Please, Sally. I nodded, even though everything in me wanted to run back to my cottage, back to being invisible, back to safety. But safety hadn't brought me anything but loneliness. So I stayed. Darrell left for the council meeting, and I tried to occupy myself in his quarters. But my mind kept spinning, replaying every awful thing Thomas had said, every whisper I'd heard, every reason this couldn't possibly work. About an hour later, raised voices filtered through the window. I moved closer and realized the council meeting was taking place in a room nearby, and the windows were open. I knew I shouldn't listen. But I couldn't help myself. Absolutely unprecedented, Your Majesty. The kingdom needs heirs, legitimate heirs. She's barren, for the gods' sake. She can't give you what you need. That was one of the council members, his voice dripping with disdain. Then Darrell's voice, cold and commanding. What I need is a mate. I found her. This discussion is over. It most certainly is not. Another voice, older, authoritative. You're a king, not some lovesick boy. You have responsibilities. Duties. You cannot throw away the kingdom's future for some woman who can't even perform the most basic female function. I flinched at that. The most basic female function. As if that's all women were. Careful, Darrell said, and there was danger in his voice. You're speaking about my mate. We're speaking about the kingdom, the older voice shot back. What happens when you die and there's no heir? Civil war, that's what. Chaos. Bloodshed. All because you couldn't put duty before your personal desires. My duty is to be a good king, Darrell said. And I can't do that half alive, going through the motions, forcing myself into a political match with someone I'll never love. I tried that for 200 years. It didn't work. Then you pick someone you can at least tolerate who can give you children, another council member argued. There are dozens of suitable candidates. Young, fertile, from good bloodlines. I found my mate. Darrell's voice was sharp enough to cut. The bond is real. I felt it. She felt it. You can't ask me to reject that. We can and we are, the older voice said. For the good of the kingdom. You will set this woman aside, compensate her generously for her disappointment, and choose a proper mate. We'll draw up a list. No. Silence. Then Darrell again, quieter but no less firm. I am your king. I've led you well for 2 centuries. I've protected our lands, grown our prosperity, kept our people safe. I have never asked for anything for myself. But I'm asking now. Let me have this. Let me have her. At what cost, someone asked. The kingdom's future? There are other ways to secure succession, Darrell said. I have nephews. We can designate an heir, train him. Or we can adopt. Other kingdoms have managed without direct bloodline succession. It's not the same, the older voice insisted. The people want a true heir. Your heir. The people will accept what I give them, Darrell said. And what I'm giving them is a king who's finally whole, finally complete, finally able to lead with a full heart instead of an empty one. That's worth more than any heir could be. My hand was pressed against my mouth, tears streaming down my face. He was fighting for me. Really fighting, risking everything, and I was standing here listening through a window like a coward. We cannot support this decision, the older voice said. The council is unanimous. You must choose someone else, or we will be forced to. Forced to what? Darrell's voice was deadly. Challenge me? Overthrow me? I'd love to see you try. We're trying to help you, someone protested. Before you make a mistake you can't undo. The only mistake, Darrell said, would be letting you bully me into rejecting my mate to save face with some outdated council. Sally is mine. That's not changing. So either accept it, or find yourselves replaced with council members who can. Chaos erupted. Multiple voices shouting, arguing, overlapping. I couldn't make out individual words anymore, just anger and fear and resistance. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding. He was going to lose everything for me. His council, their support, maybe even his throne if they pushed hard enough. All for a woman he'd known for less than 24 hours. A woman who couldn't even give him the one thing they all agreed he needed. I found myself moving without conscious decision, out of the guest house, across the grounds, toward my cottage. Away from the impossible situation I'd created just by existing. I was halfway there when a voice stopped me. Running away already? I turned to find Victoria standing near the tree line, her arms crossed, a satisfied smile on her beautiful face. I'm just going home, I said. Sure you are, she said. You heard them, didn't you? The council. They're going to make him reject you. And honestly, that's for the best. For everyone. I'm not discussing this with you. Why not? She moved closer. We both know the truth. You're not good enough for him. You're old, you're barren, you're nothing special. The only reason he's defending you is because the mate bond is messing with his head. But once that fades, once reality sets in, he'll see what we all see. And then where will you be? Every word landed like a physical blow, because they were all things I'd already thought myself. He'll resent you, Victoria continued, warming to her theme. Every time he sees a young mother with pups, every time someone mentions heirs, every time he has to defend his choice to the council, he'll resent you. And that resentment will turn to hate. Is that really what you want? To be hated by your mate? Stop, I whispered. I'm trying to help you, she said, and she actually sounded sincere. You seem like a nice enough woman. You don't deserve to be destroyed when this all falls apart. So do yourself a favor, leave now. Reject the bond before he does. Save yourself the pain. She walked away, leaving me standing there, shaking. Was she right? Would he resent me eventually? Would I watch the love in his eyes turn to regret, to bitterness, to hate? Could I survive that? I made it back to my cottage and closed the door, leaning against it, trying to breathe through the panic crushing my chest. This was insane. All of it. One day ago I was invisible, and now I was at the center of a political crisis that could bring down a kingdom. I should leave. Pack my few belongings, disappear into another packed territory where no one knew me. Let Darrell find someone suitable, someone who could actually be what he needed. It would be the noble thing to do. The smart thing. The safe thing. I was reaching for my travel bag when someone knocked on my door. My first thought was that it was Darrell, that the council meeting had ended, but when I opened the door, I found a woman I didn't recognize. She was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and kind eyes. "Sally Finnie?" she asked. "Yes. My name is Ruth." I was hoping we could talk. I hesitated, but something in her face made me step aside and let her in. She settled into my small kitchen chair like she belonged there, and I found myself sitting across from her, waiting. "I was barren too," she said without preamble. "Married young, tried for 10 years, nothing. My husband left me for a younger woman who gave him 4 pups within 5 years." My throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said. "Because that's not the end of my story. I spent 15 years alone, convinced I was worthless. Then I met my second mate, yes, it happens sometimes, and he was infertile. War injury, couldn't have children. And you know what we did?" I shook my head. "We adopted 3 orphaned pups whose parents died in a border raid. Raised them as our own. They're grown now, successful, happy. They call me Mama. And I've never felt like I missed out on anything." She leaned forward. "I heard what the king claimed yesterday. I heard what the council is demanding. And I wanted you to know something, woman to woman. Your worth is not in your womb. It never was. And any man who tells you different isn't worth having. But he needs heirs," I said. "Everyone keeps saying." "Everyone kept saying you were worthless too," Ruth interrupted. "Were they right about that?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. "The council is afraid," Ruth continued. "Change scares them. A king choosing love over duty scares them. But you know what? Maybe it's time they were scared. Maybe it's time we stopped measuring a woman's value by how many children she can produce. That's easy to say when you're not the one causing a political crisis." "Is it a crisis?" Ruth asked. "Or is it just uncomfortable?" "There's a difference, Sally. Crisis is war, famine, plague. This is just people resisting change because change is hard." She stood, patted my hand. "I'm not telling you what to do. That's your choice. But I am telling you that if you run, if you reject this gift the gods gave you because everyone else says you should, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I've seen that regret in too many women's eyes. Don't let it be in yours." She left, and I sat there in my small cottage, surrounded by the sparse belongings of a life lived small and careful and safe. A life that had brought me nothing but loneliness. "Change is hard," Ruth had said. But staying the same was killing me, one day at a time. I thought about Darrell standing up to his council. Fighting for me when he barely knew me. Seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself. I thought about that spark of hope from last night, the one I was so afraid to nurture. And I thought about Victoria's words, "Reject the bond before he does." That's what the old Sally would do. The invisible Sally. The broken Sally who believed what everyone told her about her worth. But maybe there was a different Sally underneath. One who'd survived 20 years of shame and was still standing. One who'd looked Victoria in the eye yesterday and said no. One who could maybe, possibly, if she was brave enough, believe she deserved love. The knock came again, different this time. Firmer. I opened the door to find Darrell, and one look at his face told me the council meeting had not gone well. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He entered my small cottage, and somehow his presence made it feel even smaller, more cramped. He looked around at my sparse belongings, my worn furniture, the evidence of a life lived on the margins, and something flickered in his eyes. "The council wants me to reject you," he said without preamble. "They've given me 3 days to come to my senses, or they're threatening to call a vote of no confidence." My stomach dropped. Can they do that? Technically, yes. Practically? He shrugged. It would be unprecedented. But they're desperate enough to try. This was it. My out. I could make this easy for him, release him from the bond, let him choose someone appropriate. Save him from having to choose between me and his kingdom. "I understand," I heard myself say. "If you need to." "No." He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, his hands framing my face. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. Don't you dare give me permission to walk away from you. But your kingdom will survive," he said fiercely. "Kingdoms always do. But I won't. Not if I lose you. Not if I reject the one real thing that's happened to me in 200 years because some frightened old men can't adapt to change. I can't give you heirs," I said, and my voice broke on the words. "I can't give you what they want, what you need." "You give me everything," he interrupted. "Purpose. Hope. A reason to actually care about ruling instead of just going through the motions. You give me you, Sally. That's everything. For now," I whispered. "But what about in 10 years? 20? When every other king has children and heirs and you have nothing? When you look at me and wish. In 10 years, I'll look at you and thank the gods I was brave enough to fight for you," he said. "In 20 years, I'll still be grateful every single day that fate brought me to that reception, to that room, to you." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. "I'm scared," I admitted. "So am I," he said. "I'm terrified of losing you. Terrified of not being enough to make you believe you're worthy. Terrified that you'll let them convince you to walk away." His thumb brushed away a tear I didn't realize had fallen. "But I'm more terrified of not trying. Of letting fear win. Of going back to that empty existence because it's safer than risking my heart. Your counsel can learn to adapt or find new positions," he said. "I mean that, Sally. I won't let them bully me into rejecting you. Even if it costs me the crown." "Don't say that," I gasped. "Don't risk everything for me." "You are everything," he said. "When will you understand that?" We stood there, his hands on my face, my heart breaking and healing simultaneously, caught between terror and hope. "I don't know how to be what you need," I finally whispered. "Then we'll figure it out together," he said. "One day at a time. One moment at a time. But together, Sally. Please. Say you'll try. Say you won't run." This was the moment. The choice. Safety or risk. Invisible or seen. Alone or loved. I thought about Ruth's words. About regret in women's eyes. About measuring my worth by what I lacked instead of what I had. I thought about that tiny spark of hope that refused to die. And I thought about Darrell's eyes, looking at me like I was precious, like I mattered, like I was enough. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay. I'll try." The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise, and when he pulled me into his arms, I let myself fall into it. Into him. Into the terrifying, impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, I really was someone's everything. Even if I couldn't understand why. We stood like that for a long time, and I let myself feel it. Feel wanted. Feel safe. Feel like maybe the labels everyone had stuck on me for 20 years weren't the truth after all. But reality couldn't be held off forever. "What happens now?" I asked against his chest. "Now," he said, "we go back. Together. We face the council together. We show them that I'm not backing down, and neither are you. I'm not good at facing people. You've been facing them for 20 years, he pointed out. You've survived their judgment, their cruelty, their dismissal. That took more courage than most people have. You just have to do it one more time, but this time, you won't be alone. His confidence in me was almost painful. What if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing? Then we'll handle it, he said simply. Together. That word again. Together. Like it was that simple. But maybe it could be. We walked back to the pack house side by side. People stared, whispered, but Darrell's hand was steady on my back, a constant reminder that I wasn't facing this alone. The council was assembled in the main hall, 12 stern faces watching as we entered. I recognized some of them, pack leaders, wealthy merchants, old money families. People who'd never looked twice at me before. Now they were looking. And they were not happy. Your Majesty, the oldest council member, Lord Brennan, stood. We trust you've reconsidered your hasty decision. I have not, Darrell said calmly, guiding me to stand beside his chair at the head of the table. Sally is my mate. That hasn't changed. Murmurs rippled through the council. Then we have a problem, Lord Brennan said. The kingdom needs stability. It needs the assurance of succession. This woman cannot provide that. This woman. Not even my name. Actually, a new voice spoke up. I turned to see a younger council member, maybe 40, standing. I've been researching precedent. There are at least 7 documented cases in Lycan history where kings ruled successfully without direct heirs. They designated successors, adopted, created regency councils. Those were exceptions, someone protested. And this is an exceptional circumstance, the younger man continued. The king has found his true mate. That's supposed to be sacred. When did we start valuing political convenience over the God's will? Since political convenience keeps kingdoms stable. Lord Brennan snapped. We're not talking about some commoner's love match. This is the crown. This is the future of thousands of people who depend on clear succession. I felt myself shrinking, making myself smaller like I always did when people argued about me. Then Darrell's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. A reminder. You're not alone. May I speak? I heard myself say. Everyone turned to stare at me. Darrell squeezed my hand again, encouraging. You're absolutely right, I said to Lord Brennan, and my voice shook but held. This is about thousands of people. And those people deserve a king who can actually lead them, not one who's going through the motions because he forced himself into a loveless match for appearances. Love is a luxury, Lord Brennan said dismissively. Duty comes first. Does it? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, duty without heart is just. I searched for the words. It's just performance. And people can tell the difference. I stood up, even though my knees were shaking. I know what you all think of me. Barren. Old. Unworthy. I've heard it for 20 years. But here's what none of you considered. I've survived 20 years of being told I'm worthless. I've survived being rejected, divorced, mocked, pitted. I've survived all of that and I'm still standing. My voice was getting stronger. That's not weakness. That's strength. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what a king needs beside him. Not some pretty young thing who's never faced hardship. But someone who knows what it's like to keep going when everything says you should give up. Silence. Complete silence. I can't give you heirs, I continued. That's true. But I can give you a king who finally cares about ruling because he has something worth ruling for. I can give you a king who understands struggle because his mate knows struggle intimately. I can give you a king who will fight harder for his people because he knows what it's like to fight for something that matters. I looked at Darrell, saw the fierce pride in his eyes, and drew strength from it. So yes, I said, turning back to the council. I'm Barren. I'm 40. I'm a nobody from nowhere with nothing to offer except myself. But if that's not enough for you, then maybe you're the ones who need to reconsider what actually matters. I sat down, my heart hammering, unable to believe those words had just come out of my mouth. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the younger council member started clapping. Slowly at first, then joined by 2 others. Then more. Until half the council was applauding, and the other half was sitting in stunned silence. Lord Brennan looked like he'd swallowed something sour. This is highly irregular. So is finding your true mate at 200 years old, Darrell said. I believe the gods have a sense of humor. And I believe they sent me exactly who I needed, not who I expected. The vote, Lord Brennan said tightly. We call for a vote. Does the council support His Majesty's choice of mate, despite her limitations? I support it, the younger member said immediately. As do I, another voice. One by one, the votes came in. It was closer than I would have liked, but in the end, 7 council members supported us, 5 opposed. We'd won. Barely, but we'd won. Lord Brennan stood stiffly. The council recognizes Sally Finnie as the king's chosen mate. We will adjust our expectations accordingly. It wasn't gracious, but it was acceptance. After the council members filed out, some stopping to offer cautious congratulations, Darrell pulled me into his arms right there in the public hall. You were magnificent, he murmured against my hair. I was terrified. Bravery isn't absence of fear, he reminded me, echoing my own earlier words. It's acting despite it. I pulled back to look at him. What now? Now, he said, we have 3 days before I need to return to my kingdom. I'd like to spend them courting you properly. Showing you what life could be like. Giving you every chance to change your mind if... I won't, I interrupted. You don't know that. I do, I said, and realized I meant it. I'm still scared. Still don't fully believe this is real. But I'm not running. I'm done running. His smile was radiant. Then let me take you to dinner. A real date. Just you and me. A date. When was the last time anyone had asked me on a date? 15 years? 20? I don't have anything to wear, I said automatically. Yes, you do. I took the liberty of having some things delivered to the guest house. Nothing extravagant, he added quickly when I started to protest. Just something that might make you feel special. Because you are. That evening, wearing a dress that actually fit properly for the first time in years, I sat across from Darrell at a small table in the Packhouse's private dining room and tried to remember how to make conversation. Tell me about you, he said. Not the things they say about you. The real you. What do you like? What makes you happy? I struggled to answer. When was the last time anyone had asked what made me happy? I like working with my hands. Fixing things. I've been helping repair damaged cottages after the last storm. You're good at it? I'm decent. My father was a builder before he died. He taught me some basics. What else? I like reading, I admitted. When I can get books. Which isn't often, but... I like stories. Adventures. Places I'll never go. Where would you go? He asked. If you could go anywhere? The southern coast, I said without hesitation. I've never seen the ocean. I've heard it's beautiful. It is, he said. My castle is 3 miles from the water. You can hear the waves at night. My castle. Where I would live if I truly accepted this bond, this life. That sounds nice, I said carefully. I'll take you, he said. To the beach. We'll walk it together. I'll show you my favorite spots. He made it sound so simple. So possible. We talked through dinner about his kingdom, his responsibilities, what being queen would actually mean. He didn't sugarcoat it. There would be ceremonies, public appearances, expectations. But he also promised I'd have support, teachers, time to adjust. You don't have to be perfect, he said. You just have to be willing to try. That's all anyone can ask. As the evening drew to a close, he walked me back to the guest house. At the door, he hesitated. Can I kiss you? He asked. Properly, I mean. Not for show or ceremony. Just because I want to. My heart stuttered. Yes. He kissed me like I was precious. Like I was something to be savored, not rushed. His hands cradled my face with a gentleness that made my eyes sting with tears, and when he finally pulled back, I was breathless. I've waited 200 years for that, he murmured. It was worth it. I couldn't find words, so I just pulled him down for another kiss, letting myself feel wanted, desired, cherished for the first time in 20 years. When we finally separated, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. 3 more days, he said. Then we traveled to my kingdom. Together. Together, I echoed, and this time, the word didn't scare me quite so much. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Darrell courted me properly, walks through the packlands, quiet dinners, long conversations about everything and nothing. He asked about my life, my dreams, my fears. He shared his own struggles, his loneliness, his doubts about ruling. We were learning each other, piece by piece. But it wasn't all romantic. Victoria and her friends made sure of that, spreading rumors about love spells and manipulation. My ex-husband tried twice more to warn Darrell, until Darrell threatened him with banishment. Some pack members congratulated me, others avoided me like I was contagious. Through it all, Darrell remained steady. Protective. Present. And slowly, so slowly, I started to believe. On the morning we were set to leave, Ruth found me packing my meager belongings. You're really doing it, she said, smiling. I'm really doing it, I confirmed. I'm terrified. Good, she said. If you weren't scared, I'd be worried. It means you understand what a big step this is. She handed me a small package. Something for the journey. Open it later. I hugged her, this woman who'd showed me that my story didn't have to end in shame. The entire pack gathered to see us off. Some faces were kind, some neutral, some openly hostile. I met each gaze, refusing to shrink the way I used to. As Darrell helped me into the carriage, Thomas pushed through the crowd. Sally, wait. I tensed, but Darrell's hand on my back steadied me. Thomas looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Tired. I wanted to apologize, he said. For what I said. For how I treated you during our marriage. For making you believe our problems were your fault when. He swallowed hard. When maybe I was just too much of a coward to face that some things don't work out, and that doesn't make anyone broken. I stared at him, this man who'd defined my worthlessness for so long, now admitting he'd been wrong. Thank you, I said quietly. I hope you find peace, Thomas. He nodded and stepped back. As the carriage pulled away, I watched my old life disappear behind us. The small cottage, the packlands, the place where I'd been invisible for 40 years. I should have felt sad. Instead, I felt light. Darrell pulled me close, and I let my head rest on his shoulder. Regrets, he asked. Not even one. The journey to his kingdom took 3 days. We stayed at inns along the way, and at each one, Darrell introduced me as his mate with quiet pride. Some innkeepers were shocked, some delighted, some carefully neutral. But no one dared question a Lycan king's choice to his face. The closer we got to his castle, the more my nerves returned. This was really happening. I was going to be queen. Me. Barren, 40-year-old Sally from nowhere. Breathe, Darrell murmured as the castle came into view. It was massive, built into the cliffsides, with towers that seemed to touch the clouds. "That's your home?" I squeaked. "Our home," he corrected. "And I know it's overwhelming. But you don't have to conquer it all at once. One day, one room, one person at a time." The castle staff lined up to greet us. Dozens of faces, curious and cautious. Darrell introduced me to key people, the head housekeeper, the captain of the guard, the chief advisor who'd traveled ahead to prepare. All of them bowed respectfully, but I could see the questions in their eyes. Who is she? Why her? Is she really going to be our queen? Fair questions. I was asking them myself. That first week was brutal. Everything was new, overwhelming, terrifying. I had to learn protocols, hierarchies, expectations. I had etiquette lessons, history lessons, political lessons. My head spun with information I was supposed to absorb and retain. And through it all, the whispers followed me. Can't believe he chose her. No heirs, what's the point? Nice enough, I suppose, but hardly queen material. Some staff members were kind, patient with my mistakes. Others were coldly correct, doing their duty but making it clear they didn't approve. A few were openly hostile, forgetting to inform me of schedule changes or accidentally providing wrong information that made me look foolish. I stumbled through each day, trying not to drown, trying to remember why I'd agreed to this. Then, 2 weeks after our arrival, Darrell's full council assembled for my formal introduction. 20 council members, all male, all at least a century old, all looking at me like I was a problem to be solved. Your Majesty, the head councilman, Lord Theron, stood. He was ancient, gray-haired, with cold blue eyes that assessed me like merchandise. We're grateful you've returned safely. And we're interested to meet your chosen mate. Interested. Such a careful word. Council, this is Sally Finnie, Darrell said, his hand finding mine under the table. My true mate and your future queen. A true mate bond, Lord Theron said slowly. How unexpected. At your age, your Majesty, we'd assumed that ship had sailed. As had I, Darrell said calmly. The gods apparently had other plans. Indeed. Lord Theron's eyes fixed on me. Miss Finnie, we understand you're from a smaller pack. Common-born? Yes, I said, keeping my voice steady. And you're 40, we're told? Yes. And Barren. The word hung in the air like an accusation. Yes, I said again, refusing to flinch. Then you understand our concern, another council member spoke up. His Majesty needs heirs. The kingdom needs stability of succession. You cannot provide either. Now's the moment, I heard that old voice in my head whisper. This is where you apologize for existing. Where you make yourself small. Where you agree you're not enough. But I'd spent the last 2 weeks watching Darrell rule. Watching him care about his people, make difficult decisions, carry impossible burdens. And I'd seen something else too, I'd seen how exhausted he was. How much of himself he gave to the crown, leaving nothing for himself. Until I arrived. Now he smiled more. Laughed occasionally. Made jokes with his guards. He was still a king, still carried those burdens, but he wasn't drowning in them anymore. I did that. My presence, my love, my support, it mattered. So instead of apologizing, I stood. You're absolutely right, I said, and my voice only shook a little. I can't give him biological heirs. I can't strengthen alliances through strategic childbearing. I can't be the young, fertile, politically advantageous mate you all clearly wish he'd chosen. I let that sink in. But here's what I can do, I continued. I can give him a reason to care about ruling instead of just enduring it. I can support him through the crushing weight of decisions that affect thousands of lives. I can remind him that he's more than just a crown and a title. I can love him, not for his power or position, but for who he is underneath all of that. I met Lord Theron's cold eyes directly. And maybe that's worth more than an heir. Maybe having a king who actually wants to rule, who has something worth ruling for, is better for this kingdom than another generation of duty-bound matches where everyone's miserable but at least the bloodline continues. That's a very romantic notion, Lord Theron said dismissively. But romance doesn't hold kingdoms together when succession is in question. Then we designate an heir, Darrell said. My nephew, Ethan, is 25, well-trained, intelligent. We begin preparing him for eventual succession. He's not your son, someone protested. Neither was the current king of the Western Isles until his uncle adopted him, the younger councilman I recognized from before spoke up. And that kingdom is thriving. This is different. How? I interrupted, surprising myself. How is it different? Because you don't approve of me? Because I don't fit your expectations? Or because accepting me means admitting that maybe, just maybe, a woman's worth isn't measured by her womb? Shocked silence. I have spent 40 years being told I'm worthless, I said, and I wasn't yelling but my voice carried. 40 years of being treated like I'm defective, broken, less than. And you know what? I started believing it. I internalized every cruel word, every pitying glance, every dismissive comment. I looked at Darrell, drawing strength from his fierce pride. But he saw something different. He saw strength in my survival. Wisdom in my struggles. Worth in who I am, not what I can produce. And that changed everything. I turned back to the council. So here's what I'm offering you. A queen who knows what it's like to be overlooked, dismissed, and discarded, which means I'll fight like hell for anyone else in that position. A queen who understands suffering, which means I'll actually care about the suffering of our people. And a queen who will love your king with everything she has, which means he'll be a better ruler because of it. My hands were shaking, but I kept them at my sides, visible, refusing to hide my fear. That's my offer, I said. Take it or leave it. But I'm not apologizing for existing anymore. And I'm sure as hell not apologizing for being chosen by a man who deserves to be happy. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Lord Theron did something unexpected. He smiled. Just a small one, but it was there. Well, he said. At least she has a spine. That's something. Several council members chuckled. The tension in the room eased slightly. Miss Finnie, Lord Theron continued, your passion is noted. But passion alone won't navigate complex political situations. Won't negotiate treaties. Won't manage a royal household. Do you truly believe you can learn all of that? Honestly? I said. I don't know. I've never tried. But I know how to work hard. I know how to survive things that should have broken me. And I know I'm a lot stronger than I look. So I'm willing to try, if you're willing to give me a chance. Another council member spoke up, an older woman I hadn't noticed before. I like her. She's got fire. The gods know we need more of that around here. Lady Miriam, Lord Theron said warningly. Oh, stop clutching your pearls, Theron, Lady Miriam said. You've been ruling beside spineless political matches for decades. When was the last time any king's wife spoke her mind in council? When was the last time any of them cared about anything beyond their own comfort? She looked at me. You'll make mistakes. You'll stumble. But I think you'll also surprise us. And I, for one, am willing to see what happens. As am I, the younger council member said. One by one, voices of support emerged. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough. Enough to make it clear I wouldn't be immediately rejected. Lord Theron sighed. Very well. The council will accept His Majesty's mate on a probationary basis. 6 months to prove yourself capable of the role. Fair enough? It wasn't ideal, but it was more than I'd expected. Fair enough, I agreed. After the council dispersed, Darrell pulled me into an empty corridor and kissed me breathless. "You were incredible," he said when we finally separated. "The way you stood up to them, spoke your truth, Sally. I was so proud." "I was terrified," I admitted. "I know. That's what made it brave." He held me close, and I let myself rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, steady and sure. 6 months, I said. "That's not much time to prove I can be queen." "Then we'll make every day count," he said. "Together." There was that word again. The one that had gotten me through everything. Together. The next 6 months were the hardest of my life. I threw myself into learning everything I could about being queen. Protocol, politics, diplomacy, household management, public speaking, all of it. Lady Miriam became an unexpected ally, teaching me the unofficial rules of court, who to trust, who to watch. The younger council member, Lord Finn, helped me understand political complexities. And Darrell was there every step, patient and supportive, even when I made mistakes. And I made plenty of mistakes. I used the wrong fork at a formal dinner with foreign dignitaries. I accidentally insulted a visiting duchess by complimenting her dress in a way that apparently implied she couldn't afford better. I mixed up treaty terms during a council meeting. I tripped on my own gown going downstairs while everyone watched. Each mistake felt like proof that everyone was right about me. But something strange happened. Instead of mocking me, most people helped. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Thornton, started accidentally leaving etiquette guides in my chambers. The captain of the guard, Commander Rolfe, began teaching me self-defense for security purposes, but also built my confidence. Even Lord Theron, stern and critical, started offering constructive feedback instead of just criticism. They were rooting for me, I realized. Most of them. They wanted me to succeed. Not everyone, of course. There was a faction of nobles who made their disapproval clear at every opportunity. Lady Cordelia, a stunning widow who'd apparently had her sights set on Darrell for decades, was particularly vicious. She accidentally spilled wine on my dress. She made cutting comments just loud enough for me to hear. She threw elaborate parties and forgot to invite me. Victoria had been amateur hour compared to Lady Cordelia's sophisticated cruelty. 3 months in, I was ready to quit. I found Darrell in his study late one night, reviewing reports, and I just broke. "I can't do this," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I'm trying so hard, but it's not enough. I'll never be enough. Lady Cordelia is right, I don't belong here." He pulled me onto his lap, holding me while I cried. "What happened?" he asked gently. "Everything," I sobbed. "Today I used the wrong honorific for a visiting earl and offended his entire house. Then I suggested a policy change in council that Lord Theron said showed fundamental misunderstanding of basic governance. And then Lady Cordelia held a garden party and invited everyone except me, and when I asked why, she said she assumed I'd be more comfortable with the servants. "I'll banish her," Darrell said immediately. "No," I said, wiping my eyes. "That would just prove her right, that I can't handle criticism, that I need you to fight my battles." "Then what do you need?" I struggled to find words. "I need to know this is worth it. That I'm not just embarrassing you. That you don't regret choosing me." He tilted my face up to look at him. "Sally. Listen to me. 3 months ago, I was going through the motions. Ruling because it was my duty, not because I cared. I was effective but empty. Do you understand?" I nodded. "Now?" He smiled. "Now I care. I care because I have someone worth making this kingdom better for. I care because I want to build a home we both love. I care because you make me want to be better, do better, try harder." He kissed my forehead. "You think you're failing because you don't know which fork to use. I think you're succeeding because you convinced the council to increase funding for orphanages last week. You think you're embarrassing me because you don't understand governance. I think you're brilliant because you asked questions no one else thought to ask. But Lady Cordelia is bitter that I chose love over politics, he interrupted. Her opinion doesn't matter. Only yours does. Do you want this? Really want it? Or are you only staying because you think you owe me? I thought about that. Really thought about it. Did I want this? The Queen thing was still terrifying. The politics, the protocol, the constant scrutiny, all of it was hard. But I'd also started visiting the kingdom's orphanages, spending time with children who'd been abandoned like I'd been dismissed. And seeing their faces light up when the Queen paid attention to them? That mattered. And I'd started sitting in on council meetings about infrastructure, suggesting improvements based on my experience in a poor pack where roads flooded and bridges collapsed. And watching those suggestions actually get implemented? That felt important. And I'd started using my voice to advocate for people who didn't have one, the elderly, the widowed, the childless, all the people society discarded. And seeing them heard, really heard, for maybe the first time? That was powerful. So yes. The Queen thing was hard. But it also mattered. I mattered. Not because of my title, but because I was using it to help people who needed help. I want this, I said finally. Not because I owe you. Because I'm starting to see that I can actually do some good here. That my voice, my experience, my perspective, it's valuable. It helps people. His smile was radiant. Then that's all that matters. Everything else? We'll figure it out. Together. There was that word again. And somehow, it made everything manageable. The turning point came 4 months in. A young woman, maybe 25, requested an audience with me. She was a common pack member, nervous and shy, and it took her several minutes to work up the courage to speak. Your Majesty, she finally said. I heard about you. About your story. That you can't. That I'm barren, I said gently. You can say it. It's not a curse word. She flushed. Yes. I am too. Was diagnosed 2 years ago. My husband divorced me last month. Everyone says I'm worthless now. That no one will want me. My heart broke for her. I saw myself in her eyes, that same shame, that same belief that she was fundamentally defective. What's your name? I asked. Lily. Lily, listen to me very carefully, I said. You are not worthless. Your value has nothing to do with your womb. Nothing. Do you understand? She shook her head. But everyone says. Everyone is wrong, I interrupted. I spent 20 years believing them. 20 years thinking I was broken. And you know what? It was a waste. A complete waste of energy and emotion and life. I took her hands. You are not your ability to have children. You're your kindness, your strength, your intelligence, your heart. All the things that actually matter. And any man who divorces you over this wasn't worth having in the first place. But what do I do, she whispered. How do I live with everyone thinking I'm less than? You start by refusing to believe them, I said. You start by recognizing that their judgment says more about them than it does about you. And you start by building a life that matters, with or without children, with or without a man, with or without anyone's approval. She was crying now. I don't know if I can. Neither did I admitted. But you know what? Someone once told me that bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. So you don't have to feel brave, Lily. You just have to keep going. One day at a time. We talked for over an hour. I shared my story, my struggles, my journey from shame to acceptance. And when she left, there was something different in her eyes. A spark. A tiny bit of hope. News of our conversation spread. Within a week, 3 more women requested audiences. Then 7. Then 12. All of them barren, or divorced, or widowed, or childless, or past childbearing age. All of them carrying shame they didn't deserve. And I talked to every single one of them. I listened to their stories. I validated their pain. I challenged their internalized beliefs. I helped them see themselves as I'd learned to see myself, whole, complete, valuable exactly as they were. It became my purpose. My calling. Using my position to lift up the women society had discarded. When the 6-month probation period ended, Lord Theron called me to council for my formal evaluation. I walked in expecting criticism, prepared for more conditions, more tests, more hoops to jump through. Instead, Lord Theron stood and bowed. Actually bowed. To me. Your Majesty, he said, and the title sounded different this time. Respectful. Real. The council has completed its evaluation. We've observed your progress, your efforts, your surprising competence in areas we didn't anticipate. I waited, barely breathing. You've made mistakes, he continued. You still don't fully understand court protocol. You still occasionally say the wrong thing in diplomatic situations. You still have much to learn. My heart sank. Here it comes. The rejection. However, Lord Theron continued, you've also done something none of us expected. You've connected with the people in ways we haven't seen in generations. Common folk, nobles, everyone, they actually like you. They trust you. They feel seen by you. Lady Miriam stood. She's started programs for orphans, widows, the elderly. She's brought attention to problems we've ignored for years. She's made people believe their queen actually cares about them. Lord Finn joined her. And she's made His Majesty happy. Genuinely happy. Which has made him a better king. More engaged, more creative in problem solving, more willing to try new approaches. One by one, council members stood, listing things I'd accomplished that I hadn't even realized mattered. Finally, Lord Theron smiled, a real smile, not the thin, political one I was used to. The council's vote is unanimous, he said. Sally Finnie, we formally accept you as our queen. Not provisionally. Not with conditions. You've earned this title. You've earned your place here. And we're honored to serve beside you. I couldn't speak. Couldn't process. I'd been so prepared for rejection that acceptance felt impossible. Darrell, who'd been sitting silently through the entire thing, stood and pulled me into his arms right there in front of the whole council. I told you, he murmured against my hair. I told you that you were enough. You did, I whispered back. I just had to learn to believe it myself. That night, there was a formal celebration. The entire court gathered, even Lady Cordelia, who looked like she'd swallowed glass but showed up anyway. Darrell gave a speech about partnership, about finding strength in unexpected places, about how the best things in life are the ones we don't see coming. Then he asked me to speak. I stood before hundreds of people, nobles, commoners, council members, servants, everyone, and for the first time since this whole journey began, I wasn't afraid. 6 months ago, I said, I walked into this castle convinced I was broken. Convinced I didn't belong. Convinced I'd fail and prove everyone right. I paused, gathering my thoughts. I did fail, I continued. Multiple times. Publicly. Embarrassingly. I used wrong forks and wrong titles and wrong words. I suggested terrible policies. I tripped over my own gown. I cried in my chambers convinced I was exactly what everyone said I was, not enough. I let that sink in. But here's what I learned, I said. Failure isn't the same as being a failure. Making mistakes isn't the same as being a mistake. And being barren doesn't make me broken, it just makes me barren. That's all. Just one fact about me among hundreds of other facts. and it doesn't define my worth any more than the color of my hair or the year I was born. I looked at Darrell, drew strength from his love. I learned that my worth is inherent, not conditional. I don't have to earn the right to exist, to be loved, to be valued. I just have to be. And that being is enough. My eyes found Lily in the crowd, and the dozen other women I'd counseled, all watching me with tears in their eyes. So to anyone here tonight who feels like they're not enough, I said. Who's been told they're too old, too broken, too much or not enough, I see you. I was you. And I'm telling you that they're wrong. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. You're complete. You're whole. And you're worthy of every good thing, exactly as you are. The applause started quietly, then built until the entire hall was thundering with it. And for the first time in 40 years, I stood in front of a crowd and felt proud instead of ashamed. Later that night, alone in our chambers, Darrell held me close. I love you, he said. Not despite anything. Not because of anything. Just because you're you. I love you too, I said, and meant it with everything I had. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Thank you for letting me, he said. Thank you for being brave enough to try. We stood there together, looking out over the kingdom spread below us, and I thought about how impossible this all would have seemed 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I was invisible, convinced I was worthless, waiting to die invisible and alone. Now I was queen. I was loved. I was making a difference. All because one man saw past the labels everyone else had stuck on me and recognized my soul. And because I finally learned to believe I deserved to be seen. What are you thinking? Darrell asked. That I was wrong, I said. For 20 years, I measured my worth by what I lacked. But you taught me to measure it by what I am. And I am enough. I always was. He kissed me, soft and sweet. You're everything. And standing there in his arms, I finally believed it. Not because he said it. But because I knew it, bone deep and certain. I was Sally Finnie. 40 years old. Barren. Queen. And I was exactly enough. Comments and support below mean everything to our pack. Drop a note about what Sally's journey meant to you, and don't forget that subscribe button because we've got more stories about finding your worth when the world says you have none. Your Queen Sally is signing off, but trust me, this is just the beginning of our story.